All right, welcome everybody to today's Inside RailPulse Real World Impact Panel webinar. My name is Anastasia and I'm the Marketing and Operations Coordinator for, at RailPulse. Before we begin, just a quick note, today's session will be recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel. So if you're joining us live or watching the replay, we're glad to see you here with us. Lastly, due to unfortunate circumstances, Poet will not be joining today's presentation, but will be available for future webinars. In previous webinars, we've introduced RailPulse initiatives and demonstrated the capabilities of a platform. Those two webinars are also available on our YouTube channel. All right, our agenda today will include some segment panels, introduction, discussions, followed by a Q&A session at the end if time allows. If you do happen to have any questions, you guys can please just put them in the chat and we'll get to them if time permits us. Today, we'll shift the focus from product to impact and hear directly from RailPulse members and subscribers about how the platform is transforming their operation, increasing visibility, and delivering real-world results and access to the rail ecosystem. So we'll meet the shippers first. So we'll start a meeting with the panelists. We're brought together by voices from across the rail ecosystems, shippers, shortlines, lessors, and Class 1 railroads. Each will share how they're using RailPulse data to solve real challenges, create value. Beginning with our shippers, we're joined by Nucor with Travis. So Travis, welcome to the panel. Travis is a mechanical engineer with over 30 years of rail industry experience, including positions at Class 1 railroads and rail consultings. For the past 17 years, Travis has been part of the Nucor Logistics, where his primary focus has been on rail car designs and modification. So welcome, Travis. Travis, our first question to you is, what motivated your team to join RailPulse and what were you hoping to solve with the platform?
Well, our initial thought and plan was to collect data from our locations on our loading and unloading operations as far as what kind of damage that was occurring because of incorrect loading or unloading. But it has grown to many other categories that we'll get into during our time today. But we've really started focusing more on dwell of our rail cars and illegal brake events or unwanted brake events.
Thank you. Going to the next one. With the data points and insight from RailPulse have proven to be most valuable, and I know that you're more day-to-day operations, so this will definitely help us understand the impact of RailPulse on your operations.
Yeah, I mean, we couldn't really single out one data point. We're using our brake events to target locations that are moving cars with brakes on. This graph here shows that we're verifying modifications to our equipment. We've started using tread guard brake shoes. We can see here a car had relatively high kip readings between 50 and 60 kips. It went through some braking operations. You can see about a third of the way up the graph. And then we had lower kip readings once it went through these braking events. So we can kind of imply that tread guard shoes are doing what they're supposed to do. So verifying what we thought we would see out of equipment modifications is another side benefit we kind of got with the RailPulse system. We're also targeting locations that we see moving cars around with brakes on. We're targeting locations we see that are moving our cars too much. Sometimes we have a car go into a location and it should be unloaded or loaded and then to go back out. But instead, it has multiple trips inside of a geofence, and we're able to see that with the RailPulse system. I think I had a slide with that on. I'm not sure if it's the next one or the next one, but we're able to see if a car is being used inside of a geofence in a way that we don't approve of. So that's the data points that were there. There you can see a car. I mean, the car was there for, you can see the time frame, less than 2 days, and it's moved 5.4 miles inside this geofence. That shouldn't happen. Car should come in, it should be loaded, and it should leave. So this tells us they're moving the car around in a way that we really don't approve of. So we're able to follow up this location and just do some education about how they use our equipment.
Thank you for that, Travis. Going to our next question. How has RailPulse changed the way you plan, communicate, and provide visibility across your operations?
It's really opened up communications with internal and external customers that we didn't really have before, because there were times when we would think something was happening location, but we had no data to back it up. And now we can show, just like that last slide that we saw, we can show, hey, you're using our car inside your facility as a shuttle. Don't do that. So we thought this was happening before, but we didn't have proof. Now we got some data we can take back and help educate them. Whether this is a location is internal or external, it doesn't matter. We can use it as an education piece of material to use them. The fact that we have data to back up what we thought was happening has really opened our eyes to what's happening, really opened our customers' eyes sometimes that they didn't really realize what was happening. So it's really helped with education as much as anything.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing with that. Going to our last question is, how has this visibility strengthened the relationship or performance for your internal stakeholders and partners?
We're able to push harder on our internal customers to change behavior. And sometime even with an external customer. This was a location, I took the card number out of these, but I really couldn't take the location out sometimes and make the point that this location had multiple high impacts or multiple impacts, at this location. We're able to single out this location compared to other locations that have the same equipment doing the same job that have an order of magnitude higher impact ratio. So we're able to kind of single out a location and then go and use it for education. Like, please be a little more gentle with the equipment, whether that's a loading operation, unloading operation, or a switching or car movement operation. So it's really gives us more visibility as far as being able to communicate with them with actual data, like we were talking about before. But this one we can single out impacts, but others we may it may be break events. So it just opens up those channel of communications that we didn't have before.
It's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Travis. We'll go ahead to our next panel member, and it's going to be with the lessor panelist from Jason from GATX. Now, Jason has joined GATX in 2013, where he now leads their emerging technologies department. He has worked at GATX project lead on RailPulse and interception. And Jason holds a bachelor's degree of arts from Grinnell College and MBA in finance competitive strategy from the University of Chicago. So Jason, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We'll go ahead with our first question. Our first question is, why did GATX join RailPulse and when it was founded?
So for us, it started a small, tiny little project a while back where we were seeing a bunch of interest from actually our customers over in Europe. For whatever reason, well, there's a few reasons, that geography has been a lot faster to adopt the technology. Different operating environment. You've got many different railway undertakers, as they call it, sort of like their railroads, and no visibility at all. So they're completely operating in the dark. So in combination with that, as well as some really heavy EU subsidies, we're just seeing a much higher uptake. And this would have been 3-4 years ago. So we decided at that point we should talk to our customers over here in North America. And so we did talk to, I don't know, 20, 25 customers or so, kind of sat on that for a while until eventually the idea around RailPulse, it wasn't even called RailPulse at that time, was pitched to us on this sort of industry-wide framework to share telematics data and hopefully get the industry to start to use technology that's already used in other modes and that's widely available. And so from our standpoint, we were like, well, we didn't really have any plans to really go after this. We didn't know how to go after this on our own. But when the framework was pitched that gave the same kind of equal weighted representation and power around how this coalition is governed, where you've got the lessors and shippers holding just as much weight as the class 1 and shortline railroads, we started to see, well, yeah, maybe this could work. And from our standpoint, we really needed something that that was scalable. And so ultimately, obviously, we jumped on board, and we're excited to launch the platform, I think, in September of last year after we closed out the Chrissy grant.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, you guys definitely been a big help trying to launch and continue the operations that we're working on. I'm going to our next question. Why not work directly with the customers by sending them your telematic data? Why do you need RailPulse?
In very niche instances, we've been doing installs for customers every so often over the last, like before RailPulse was even around. We would get customers who would reach out and they'd want to, it was sort of onesie, twosie. They'd reach out, they'd want to put devices on cars. And as a little bit of homework, just for this conversation, I was curious what the first install that GATX did here in North America, and it was actually back in 2006. Devices were a lot bigger. I think that more expensive. They cost more than they do today. But the key piece, and I sort of alluded to this in the last answer, was for us, we didn't really have a great distribution mechanism to set up a way to get the data to all of our customers so that when they log into whatever system they use, they only see their cars, we only see our cars. And then maybe the trickiest part is making sure that as the railroads are listed on their way bills, that they were getting the data when they needed to see that data as well. And so we're really, what we rely on RailPulse to do is to make sure that the right people get the right data at the right time. And then hopefully by setting up this distribution mechanism, you or we all collectively are creating an environment where you get far more adoption of technology than we get today. And hopefully that incentivizes the hardware providers, the sensor manufacturers to do new and interesting things that are designed and developed for the rail industry. And then on the other end, right, GATX, we're not a software company. We have no interest in becoming a software company. That's not a core competency for us. But by making this data widely available and allowing our customers to do whatever they want with that, hopefully you get some cool services from the 3PLs and TMS, the transportation management systems, that can take that data in, incorporate it into the tools that our customers already use every day, you know, arrive at new services that weren't available without this more real-time information.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I know that as RailPulse, we try to go hard on being a single source of truth for all the data that comes in. And companies like you who actually use that day to day do see the value of that. So that's fantastic. Thank you. Going to our next question. How do you work with your customers to uncover where they might find value from improved visibility? That again, going back to that single source of truth that RailPulse is.
Absolutely. Yeah, so each customer is unique, and I think each one of them is trying to get something slightly different out of it. Some of them could be as simple as just, look, we've got a location or two where when it goes on this line, we just don't get great visibility from the CLMs, the wayside detector readers system that's in place today. And so having that real-time, maybe it's GPS, so within a minute you're getting updates, or every 15 minutes when a car is moving, is just a lot more granular than they can get today. Or maybe it's the load empty sensor that gives you readings within just 15 minutes of when cars are loaded or unloaded. Or it could be an instance where we've got a customer who needs to really rack up the dollars and cents behind, well, we've got to figure out a way to get to an ROI here. And so it's sort of sitting down with them and going through all the possible areas of opportunity and trying to figure out where's the lowest hanging fruit that provides enough bang for your buck where you can get a payback from paying to install all this equipment, but also from a likelihood of success standpoint, you can actually expect to maybe not get 100% of the opportunity that's out there, at least not initially, but a good portion of that, so that you can feel confident that as you make that big investment in time and resources to make it happen for your fleet, that you've got a really structured way to go about and get that value.
Thank you for that. I'm going to our last question. How has RailPulse transformed your approach to predictive maintenance?
Yeah, so we're certainly not at the point where we're putting it into practice. I would say we're in a data gathering and analysis phase. These are really long-lived assets that last decades. And so right now, we're trying to build up the data set and compare that to our own internal repair systems and the BRCs, the data behind the repair bills that we pay today, and see if we can find some correlations and have that inform how we care for our fleet. So we're not quite there. I wish that we had years of data, but it's better to start now than wait another few years to collect and review that data set. And I think we're well on our way. And I think there's some interesting things that we can potentially do to improve how we manage our wheel sets, as well as the coupler and surrounding components there.
Great, thank you so much, Jason. It's good to hear the foundation role, the visibility has been, especially for the lessors perspective. I appreciate you joining us in the webinar, and hopefully you will stay for the questions at the end. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah.
All right, now let's shift to the Class 1 railroads perspective. We're joined by Mike from CPKC. Mike is the Senior Vice President for the Network and Capacity Management at CPKC, where he oversees the strategic use of companies' assets to support sustainable growth. With over 25 years at Canadian Pacific in both spanning operations, business development, and marketing, he brings deep industry insights and market awareness. So Mike, thank you for joining us. I know you're a busy man, so it's great to have you on here. I'll go ahead into my first question, and that is, how did CPKC first engage with RailPulse, and what motivated that move?
No, thanks, Anastasia. Can you hear me okay? Because I don't know if my connection's good. Okay, perfect.
Yep, you're perfect.
Okay, so CPKC, we've been members since early 2024, and I'm our board representative for the company on the RailPulse board. And I'd say prior to 2024 and prior years, we've been dabbling in telematics, using it in multiple departments. We've been very actively engaged in various industry committees, AAR committees, but quite frankly, we were in the infancy of our strategy around telematics. And I think as we looked out, we realized that this was something that we couldn't, number one, do alone, and number two, the environment was constantly changing, and then number three, there's a lot of leverage and other perspectives out there and experiences. And I just listened to Jason and Travis, and it's just testimony. I learned a lot even on this call, but really that there was a need to partner, and we'd had an opportunity to work with and engage with RailPulse in these committees, and we very much appreciated and were aligned with the kind of the overarching vision to generate single source of the truth, so that we can compete with other modes of transportation, improve our customer experience, and ultimately provide a better product. So we decided to join. We also do really respect and appreciate the fact that it's not just the Class 1 industry, that we have multiple perspectives at the table. And it allows us to both, or CPKC, to both shape and to learn as we go. And we've got a lot of learning to do.
Well put. And for those who don't know, yes, RailPulse is a coalition. So each member gets a voice. So the shippers, the Class 1s, the lessors, they all get a voice, which is fantastic to know that different perspectives are out there. Going to our next question, what types of RailPulse data are providing most actionable across your network?
So I'll admit that right now we really are in the infancy stages of using RailPulse data, and we equipped the first tranche of our equipment was internal fuel equipment, or fuel cars that we use in our northern part of our network, and so very much early phases. And right now we're using GPS mapping, real-time location, and it's being used primarily by our fuel distribution team, and they certainly are seeing benefits. Now, we have an aggressive capital program over the next 18 months, which will see us equip thousands of cars in various fleet types. And the mandate internally here will be you continue to use RailPulse data to improve your decision making and your communication, and that'll be on lines of business that are all the lines of business we touch. So anyone who distributes a rail car or touches a rail car will be familiar with the tools. Ultimately, it's going to be the critical mass that really helps our business as other members equip and the number of rail cars grow exponentially with hardware and devices. That's when we're going to really see the benefit. But at this point in time, it's really the GPS and location devices that we're leveraging.
Fantastic. You got to start somewhere. So I'm glad that RailPulse provides you that information. Going to our next question. Can you share specific examples where data helps solve an operational challenge? So you talk about the GPS and all of that sensors. Can you just elaborate more about that?
Yeah, and then I wish I had a home run of a case example here. Again, we're early in our evolution, but I will say that just you take a look at the fuel fleet itself, which operates primarily in the northern part of our network. We used about 10 or 11 fewer rail cars to move records amount of fuel in March, April. Our gross ton miles in that region were all-time highs. And can I attribute 100% of the cycle time improvements and utilization to RailPulse data and visibility? No, but can I claim it's an enabler? Absolutely. And I just, if I drill down a little bit on that, we have one of our vendors we load a lot of fuel out of that location, and we've been able to really almost completely automate the communication between the vendor and the fuel team, whereas it used to be daily phone calls. We know exactly where our cars are and what the position of them are. So those are seed planters. Honestly, there's a lot to go, a lot of work to do, but they're certainly proof points, and we're excited about them.
Well, I'm glad that RailPulse is going to be there every way to support you. And our last question for the day is, what future application do you see from RailPulse data as your network evolves? So you just said that you did a small fleet, but you're looking to expand. Can you just elaborate more about that?
Yeah, so again, it's hard to I don't even know where to start on this question, but I will say that we certainly have a ton of system priorities right now. But if you look out from a future perspective, I see telematics being the cornerstone of improving our rail product, period. And that is around all aspects of what hangs off a rail car, meaning supply chain performance, first mile, last mile, car hire, the service parameters, the push to win back share in the transportation mode needs an anchor and needs a fresh or needs data, needs analytics, and telematics is certainly where certainly our intention is to anchor on that. And I think that also goes to just the comment somebody else made it today, that single source of the truth. I think that's so important from an industry perspective, and the faster we get there, the better off we're all going to be. I think that if I look at the second kind of usage, and it's very much interrelated, it's just internal process. Our objective over time is to integrate telematics, RailPulse platform into our core systems. That'll take time. We know that. But that certainly it will. I envision a far more efficient internal set of processes driven off a common set of data, and then I think stating the obvious. I think Jason mentioned it. And we're very much deeply involved at multiple levels in our mechanical team is just around equipment health and long-term equipment health, and whether that be just damage prevention, whether it be extending the life of these long assets, or creating industry standards around safety. Certainly, I see telematics and RailPulse being at the forefront of that. So again, a lot of work to do. We're certainly at an infancy stage. I would say that critically important that we prioritize, sequence, and don't try to bite off too much too quickly. But I do see a path to some pretty exciting things going forward.
Very exciting stuff. Thank you so much, Mike, and thank you for joining the panel.
You're welcome, and I do apologize that I am going to have to back off and catch a flight, but hopefully there weren't any questions for me anyhow. So thank you.
No, safe travels.
Thank you. Okay,
Thank
goodbye.
you. And now we'll just bring the shortlines specific with Karina from Watco. Karina is a director of rail car management at Watco. She has 20 years experience in the rail industry, and she holds an MBA from Rutgers University, among other certificates. Welcome, Karina. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Anna.
So we're going to go ahead. Karina, your team is deeply engaged with RailPulse data. How do you use telematics data to daily operations?
Yeah, we are in the beginning stages on how we intend to use telematic data. You know, at this point, we are focusing on making sure that the cars are staying in the route that they're supposed to be. You know, we have tools like looking at the map to know where the car locations, and then setting up geofences to get new notifications. Like Travis mentioned, I mean, setting up those geofences can give you good eyes on what the cars are doing and how they're moving. And this is available to all the parties in any given waybill route, so it adds transparency on each move. And we're also, like Jason mentioned, I mean, there is no much historical information yet, but we're starting to, working on compiling information to understand the utilization of the fleet, to find patterns, so we could use, help visualizing opportunities to improve the utilization of the fleet. Overall, Watco has a small fleet. Right now, we have about 1,000 cars that are equipped, but we continue, working on our own cars, equipping more of our cars, and also working with the lessors to install sensors and telematics devices on lease cars to increase the total number of cars that the Watco's fleet is equipped. The more cars equipped, the better picture you will have for your fleet and better use of the information.
Yes, very well said. Thank you so much. Yes, having 1,000 cars is better than 0. And in the future, I hope you guys have 5,000 cars too, 50,000 cars. Going to the next question, what kind of support does RailPulse provide that helps make this data actionable?
RailPulse team is a great help in making sure the cars are reporting correctly in the system. If we detect any anomaly, we'll just reach out to RailPulse and they will help us. The team will help us investigate and make corrections as needed. We hold monthly meetings to review statistics information on the sensors reporting to understand percentage of confidence, comparing telematic data to the CLM reporting, reviewing uptime, latency, etc. Now, there are many manufacturers of sensors in the market to choose from, right? And RailPulse helps analyzing all these different options and making sure that the manufacturers of sensors, follow and meet requirements and standards to provide, a reliable data, and also, continue looking to improve the design and performance on the sensors. In these modern days, anyone has access to a lot of data from different places and sources. So to me, the question is not where to get the data from, but the important question is, what do you do with all that information, all that data, and how you consolidate it in one place so you can use it, you can, transform all the raw data into information that can help you, make timely decisions. So everything happens so fast. The RailPulse, helps consolidating all this data and putting it together again in one platform. I think that's the key. That's the key word that we will have. One platform, one source. Like they mentioned before. One single source that is at your fingerprints, and not only at your fingerprints, but also all your customers, the shortlines, class ones, everybody that is involved in the waybill route. Everybody has the same information at the same time, and this definitely helps transparency and accountability from each party involved.
Couldn't say it by myself. Thank you for that one, Karina. Going to our next question, can you share examples where having RailPulse made a clear difference? Now you mentioned using geofences and GPS tracking. Can you just elaborate more on that, please?
Yes, we had a rail car that it was delivered to another carrier, and when it was empty release, and the car was misrouted. It didn't take that long for us to see it that the car was going the wrong direction. So going back to RailPulse report, we were able to show that, hey, the car is moving out of route, different from the waybill. So carrier was able to bring the car back to the interchange where it's supposed to go. And without that clear and easy visibility, it will have taken longer, much longer to find out that a car, is out of route. And in these cases, the sooner you identify misroute cars, the better for everyone. RailPulse made it easy to see it, and also just explain, hey, this is the waybill, this is the route, and this is the current location of the car. So it made the whole process much easier to bring car back on track. And also looking at the map is much easier and simpler to identify where the car is, instead of having to walk in the yard, east, west, north, south, until you trying to find a car. So it is maybe a simple example, but I believe it is very, very impactful on the operations.
A value case is a value case. All right. Thank you for sharing that with us. Going to our last question is, how has access to RailPulse data improved communication with your customers? Again, we touched base on the single source of truth and having that visibility from the portal. Can you just give us more kind of information on that, please?
Yeah, being able to have a real-time data that is transparent to everyone and is available to everyone. It helps. It has helped conversations about cycle times. Reporting. Where the cars are, how the cars are moving, facilitating planning on both sides, using information like the load empty, placement, actual locations. We don't have to wait until the manual entry at the destination, at a plant or terminal or customer. We don't have to wait for them to make the entry, and have the answer that we're looking for back in an office that is probably, miles away. So in a way, I think of sensor as, your eyes on site. So it helps, planning. It helps, planning, doing it. It helps you with the planning and, use it with the confidence and avoiding extra moves, switching cars that is unnecessarily. This helps saving time and money for both parties, for everyone, right? Also, you have a conversation with customers, finding areas of opportunity in both sides. So we're still working with all of our customers, trying to get more cars in their fleet equipped. The goal is, to increase the asset utilization, the fleet utilization, and be able to just calculate what is my best size, to cover all my demand, to cover my needs, keeping, the idle assets at a minimum. That's the goal.
Thank you, Karina. That definitely ground level perspective shows how valuable this data is across the board. There's no denying that RailPulse does everything we possibly can to support the rail industry in that aspect. So I do have one more or two more questions for the full panelists. So I'm just gonna go ahead and order. And those two questions is, what are your hopes and expectations for RailPulse for the next 2 to 5 years? And what advice would you give others thinking about how to experiment with this telematic data? So Mike has unfortunately left us. Hopefully travel safe. And Karina, we'll start with you.
Of course, thank you. My hope is that, car owners see the benefit of RailPulse, because, the more cars that are equipped and the use of sensors in the industry continues to grow and develop, the better picture, that everyone will have. Railroads will have visibility on how many cars are coming their way to plan for crews, manage cars online. Shippers will also be able to manage their pipeline, know where the cars have been delivered to destination, or when to expect cars coming to be loaded. So it will help better plan everybody's business. Now my expectation that the sensor manufacturers continue improving the design and functionality of all the sensors available, like the GPS, load empty, handbrake, etc., to make sure that the sensors are reliable and they follow an industry standards.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Karina. Travis, we'll go to you. What expectations for RailPulse for the next 2 to 5 years do you have? And what advice would you give others thinking about experimenting with the data?
Yeah, I guess our expectation for RailPulse is to just help us digest the amount of data we're getting and determine how we're going to use it. I mean, we're getting a lot of data. A lot of it we just don't know how to get it out of the system. Some of it, it's such a granular data. How can we pull it out in an automated way that can tell us, like, if a car's sitting without us having to drill down and try to find it? And RailPulse has been very responsive to helping us produce the reports that we need. So our expectation is to just continue that level of support with us so that we can get the reports out the way we need. And the advice I would give, echo Karina, don't wait. I mean, we got nearly 900, we got over 900 cars equipped now. And the longer they're in service, the more data we get. So the longer you wait, the less data you're going to have. So every month, with the more cars equipped, we're getting more and more data that we can see the big picture of what's going on. So don't wait to jump in, because the quicker you can get data, the more you're going to learn sooner. So.
Thank you for that, Travis. And then lastly, Jason, we'll go to you. What hopes and expectations do you have for the next 2 to 5 years for RailPulse? And what advice would you give others who are thinking about experimenting with the telematics data?
Yeah, so I'll sort of piggyback off of what Karina initially said around trusting the sensor data. I think at its core, the number one thing that RailPulse always has to keep front and center is making sure that at all times you can trust the sensors and the data that comes out of it, because when you look at other platforms, if you don't have that trust, you've got absolutely nothing. So like, take something that we're all familiar with, like Uber. I don't think any of us are going to get into a stranger's car or sleep in a stranger's home like Airbnb unless you've got a platform that at its core really, really pays close attention to trust. So I think that's always got to be front and center. And then beyond that, now 3, 5 years, 6, 10 years down the road, I think scale is key. We have to get to a point where we're getting closer and closer to that critical mass where we can get network effects. And I don't think any of us really knows what all we all can collectively unlock for the industry once we start to see more and more cars out there and equipped. So I think leaning into scale, and then beyond that, sort of on my bucket list for the hardware vendors and some of the products they're working on, I'm really, really interested to see some of the improvements to the handbrake sensors that they've brought, as well as improvements to the impact detection sensors, either dedicated or within the gateway device themselves. And then there's some that have come out, or maybe not quite come out, or close to coming out with gateway devices that can give you quote unquote track level visibility. So understanding exactly, within a yard, I know this car is in this slot on, say, track 3. And I think while we at GATX might not get the same benefits as maybe some others, because we don't always, by design, don't always have cars because we only touch them every 5 to 10 years. I do think our shops will get a lot of value out of it. And then to your second question on giving others, thinking more about how to experiment, the one piece of advice I would give, similar to Travis, would be don't wait. And not only don't wait in getting devices on your cars and collecting data, but also be mindful of, hey, I know I want to do these 1 or 2 things right off the bat. We've done enough of these with customers where they eventually realize, after we've already collected data for 2 or 3 months, that, oh shoot, it would have been great if we also set up the geofences and the triggers and the rules so to create the alerts that you can then go look at. So right off the bat, highly, highly recommend that you set up the geofences and alerts that, or alert trigger rules that you know are going to be important for you right away, day one, so that you can start to build that sort of second set of data.
That's very well put, Jason. Thank you. Yep, having 5 cars or 500 is definitely important to get those equipped so you can see the data and get that information to you faster. So we do have a few minutes left in our webinar, so we'll take some questions. But before that, I just want to say thank you for all your thoughtful insights, and the real-world examples you shared truly highlighted how shared visibility and real-time data is transforming rails. I'm going to just go ahead and open the floor to any questions that the audience may have. If you want to type them in the chat quickly for the panel, and for me, I will go ahead and answer those. Looks like we have one question here that says, what is the step being taken to sync with railroads and other shippers, TMS, 3PL systems, so that the full picture can be seen of location and operation status?
I think this happens to be pretty timely for us. So at GATX, we've already had a few customers now. We're not fully baked out in setting up those data feeds through with RailPulse and the connections with the 3PL and TMS tools that those shippers in particular use. But it's definitely something that we've heard from customers, and we're starting to do now here soon, is getting that connection between the tools that our shippers already use. They don't really feel like having to log into another tool. They already have the tools they like, and so it's just a matter of getting this more real-time data or new data feeds into the systems that they already use. So I guess in short, it's really just making sure that you've got shippers or railroads that have devices on cars that are communicating that data in a standardized way with vendors that are certified and they've shown that those sensors work. And then making sure that you can, as a 3PL provider, or TMS tool or maybe ERP system, whatever, that you can actually inbound that data and set up that API with RailPulse.
Thank you, Jason. Does anybody else have any questions?
Hey, yeah, just while he typed, his answer in the chat, I just wanna, add one more thing, like Mike mentioned, the freight cars are not a cheap asset. And, when you invest in a group of rail cars, either to lease them or to use it in your business, everyone wants to keep the assets in good health to maximize the life and return of investment. So if you get, your cars equipped with the sensors, you have RailPulse consolidate all this information, digest all the transmitted data, just like Jason mentioned, getting everything in one point, one source, and then deliver it in an organized, simple to read and understand information, to help you keep your assets in a good health and maximize utilization.
Thank you for that, Karina. I still don't see your question, so I'll reach out to you after the call and answer them directly. Before we wrap up, I just want to thank you, the whole panelists, for joining us and their valuable time and valuable perspective. If you're interested in learning more about RailPulse or explore memberships, we'd love to connect with you. So whether you're a railroad, shipper, shortline, or lessor, there's always a place for you here. And then we'll be sending our recording today of today's session to our YouTube channel, and you will get a direct email from me. RailPulse will be taking a short break from hosting webinars this summer, just because you guys have vacation time and want to spend time with the family and not sitting here with me all summer. So we'll be back in September with new great sessions. So stay tuned for more details. And with that, on behalf of the entire RailPulse team, I just want to thank you for joining us, and we're looking forward to see you soon. Thank you all so much.